wanted them to, behave properly and all that sort of thing. He was, not too strict with them, but he wanted them to behave as they should, which is fine.
It's interesting because as I look back, and when I was a kid, I remember him being kind of a, stern disciplinarian type. And I think a lot of that, he traveled, when we were all younger, he traveled quite a bit. So there were a lot of times he was out of town during the week, and, Grandma, my mom was sort of there holding down the fort. And so, as kids, it was like we felt like we could get away with things with her that we never would have gotten away with our dad. And then when the day of reckoning came closer, it got to be Thursday, Friday, we knew he was coming home. We thought, we're going to be in trouble now. We'll be paying.
Did your father ever instill any lessons on you that yes?
Yeah, don't get caught. My sister and I were home one time, both of us well out of college, and we had our feet up on the furniture, and when we heard the garage door up, immediately both of our feet hit the floor.
So I sort of have that may not be the sort of the best memory, but I guess that's a realistic memory that it's like him being the disciplinarian and realizing we were going to pay for whatever sins or transgressions during the week we would have when he came home, and it was like that sort of like that come to Jesus moment that you knew you were going to have to pay the fiddler in that way.
So yeah, he could be strict, and when you talk to Ron and Larry, you might want to ask them about his little fraternity paddle, because they got it more than I did. But fraternity paddles have holes in them, so they can't build up velocity, so you can't actually hit anybody very hard. But we would occasionally get a little swat on the rear if we were really...
And I think my view of him is mellowed in later years, but I certainly remember that as a kid, that there was that sort of, respect of him as being the authority figure, and we better toe the line or we were going to pay for it.
On that subject, Jody, in her interview, told me I should ask you about pledge paddle with holes drilled into it.
Okay, yeah. So, my dad was a Phi Delta in college, so he had one of those fraternity paddles, that has, you may have seen these in school, that has, the Phi Delta letters, and it had kind of like some air holes in it, so you could swing it even a little faster. So there wouldn't be air resistance. So, and that was, although there wasn't, he wasn't like I don't even want to say physically abusive, but we'd get sort of like symbolic paddling. And so if we'd done something wrong, and so maybe when he comes home, whether it was when he was traveling or at any other point in time, there was the sort of prescribed punishment, which was in the house that we grew up in, there was a basement shop, and so that's where he kept the paddle, and we'd go in, and there was a workbench there, and so you would, if you were going to be punished, and I think this was only Ron and me, I don't think the girls ever got stuck with this, but you'd sort of assume the position, and he would, it was never more than one swat. You'd get one swat of the paddle, and that was it. There was always sort of the fear of it was always much worse than actually getting swatted with it. But that was kind of this ritualized deal, and it was interesting. It was only one. It's not like if you were really bad, you'd get like 5. You'd get 1, and the sting of that was enough. So at one point in time, in terms of the paddle, I think we were outside and we were pretending, it was either Ron or me, pretending to chop down a tree using the fraternity paddle, and he ended up breaking it. We thought, now we're really going to be in trouble. So this paddle that had been made out of, I don't know what it was, some type of, hardwood, Ron ends up basically taking the old one and making a pattern and making a new one out of probably, 3/8 or half-inch plywood. So then, the paddle that probably had some give to it now really had some extra swat to it. So we probably paid for that. The fact that the old paddle was gone, and he thought, or I guess we thought that we were going to be in even bigger trouble with Grandpa because of that, that now he had a new, more lethal paddle that you probably couldn't break if you swatted it against a tree 1,000 times.